was a place where there's no trouble, no more pain, no more struggle.
Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. I'm very excited to share this conversation that I had with Andy Doiron of Whynot Farms. I just think he's super entertaining and very interesting, and he's so knowledgeable in the chicken field for a some might call a newbie. We started at closely the same time-ish, within a year maybe, and he's going all out. Like, he's doing lots of cool stuff with chickens, but also he's got side things as well, which I think is super awesome. And he is just making he's doing as much as he can with his property and what he's got available to him, which I think is very cool. And I apologize that this episode is a little on the long side. I guess I know a little bit more about chickens than I do some other things, and so I have more questions to ask, just to kind of compare. And so, again, I apologize that it is a little bit longer, but I'm just going to get right to this interview. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that you maybe start to consider chickens, or we'll reach out to Andy if you have any questions about chickens. All right. Hello. Welcome to Grounded in Maine podcast. My name is Amy. Today I am speaking with Andy Doiron of Whynot Farms. And I'm so excited to share this with you guys. Andy, you are an educator, but what is it that you teach?
Well, first off, Amy, I just want to thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's a true honor and a pleasure. I actually teach STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, which is basically kind of a hands-on program with problem solving and robotics and Legos and some digital design, and do a little woodworking folded into that. So it's kind of a not your traditional course, should I say, but more like a combination of a lot of different courses, and trying to use all those skills from the other courses to figure stuff out, if that makes sense.
Ooh, that's awesome. Is that kind of like an alternative education?
No, well, you could call it that, but I teach all students. I'm a middle school teacher, 6, 7, and 8, and I think you would consider it as part of a unified arts or a special schedule that some schools call it, like an art, a music, a PE, etc. And so I see the kids for like 8 weeks, and then I get a new group of kids for another 8 weeks. And that goes on all year long.
Okay, cool. So sort of like, this is going to age me a little bit, but like industrial arts and home ec?
Yes, totally.
But in the sort of math, robotics. Oh, that's very cool. I didn't even know. Well, again, that's going to show how old I am, because I did not even know that.
I tell you, if they would let me teach home ec, I would be, and woodworking that way, and chickens, that would be in my wheelhouse right there. I'd be so happy.
Right.
But that hasn't happened yet.
Not yet, anyway.
That's right.
But, so you're an educator, and then you got into chicken raising, and I think that you got into chicken raising about the same time as me, like 9 years ago.
7 or 8, but yeah, right around that same window.
Okay, all right. And so, and unlike me, you are hosting a weekly like chicken chat on Facebook, which is so cool. So people can write in and ask questions, or during the live, they can ask you questions, but also just be with like people, because you can. I know for me, like, I can listen to podcasts and I can watch YouTube videos and whatever, but there's not a lot of interaction. So it's really cool to be able to ask in real time questions that you might have. And so I think it's amazing that you're offering that. But so how did you end up at this point?
Well, as far as the chicken chat goes, I was a couple years ago, I was invited to be a guest on like a Sunday night show on Facebook Live by Daniel Bell, which is he's on a lot of the hunting pages and the chicken chat pages, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And we did it a couple of times. It was a lot of fun. And then I want to say he couldn't do it anymore on a regular basis. And so I said, well, let me try doing it by myself. And from there, it just kind of took off. It's usually about an hour and 15. It really depends on the time of year. Obviously, in the springtime, when everybody has chicks or thinking about getting chicks and chickens, our viewership is up quite a bit. As we kind of roll into the summer, it starts going down. I think people have started their journey, and even though they still maybe need help or have questions, it's just as easy to send me a quick message than to watch something on Sunday night. So I tend to dial the chicken chat down in the summertime. And I'll pick it back up. I may do a couple in the fall and the winter, but it's not weekly like it is usually starting in February. It goes February to about June, every single week on Sunday night at 7.
Because you're in the middle of hatching. Like you're starting to breed and hatch in the spring,
yes.
Late winter. Because you're not just raising chickens, you are breeding and selling, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think people really enjoy that part because part of it, if you've never done it before, seeing someone start the process from collecting the eggs to storing the eggs to putting the eggs in the incubator to knowing the amount of days and the humidity and the temp and candling the egg and what to look for, and then putting them in lockdown and then taking them out of the incubator and those first few days / weeks in the brooder, all of that, if you've done it, it's kind of old hat. But if you've never done it, each step along the way seems like this really big issue that you don't want to screw up because you're dealing with this little life that maybe you paid money for, maybe you got some young kids who can't wait for it to hatch and you don't want to screw it up. And so having someone kind of by your side who you can ask questions to and actually see their face and actually see them go through the process seems to help folks.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and also I would say, for me personally, I think it's great that you are out there. You're making yourself known as a breeder. And when I'm ready to do chicks again, I don't like doing chicks because they're so messy, but if I wanted to do chicks again, I might, I would probably go with you because I'm familiar with you, because I know that you're caring for everyone, and because it's local and I don't want them to go through the mail and all that stuff. Like, these are things that I'm learning in my process, but just, listening to you and watching everything that you're doing and the care that you put into it, like, I would want you to be my breeder for my next chicks. And also, it's good for you to be on the same level, like to be known so that people are going to you. But for me, it's like a trust thing.
It really is. And I'm very proud of the reputation that we've built and standing behind our chicks and standing behind the process. No one can be 100%. That just doesn't happen when you're dealing with eggs and chicks, and things can happen. The minute they leave your hands, things can happen. I've had chicks die here for one reason or another. I've had chicks that I've sold to someone that didn't develop for one reason or another. But I think the point is okay, what do you do after that? Okay, right. If someone that you've sold a chick to, if the chick dies or is sick, what do? How do you support them? Do you support them through the process from the minute they contact you and say, listen, I know it's been a week, but now the chick looks different? Well, the chick could look different because that person could have screwed up 100 things, or that chick could have had something wrong with it that maybe I didn't notice. Regardless, I'm trying to help that person.
Right.
And after the fact, I almost always say, hey, do you want your money back? Do you need a chick to replace it, etc.? And I've had some pushback from other people on that in the past, like other breeders, et cetera, saying, what are you doing? That wasn't your fault. It's been 2 weeks. It's been 3 weeks. That's getting a little ridiculous. And I just say, you know what? It's not that big of a deal to me. If it makes that person happy, 2 weeks down the road, I'm giving them a new chick.
Right.
Then okay, I've got a happy customer, and I don't think that's a big deal. Now, would I do it 22 times? Would I get fooled by someone? Yeah, but in the long run, it really hasn't been a big issue for me.
Right.
I try to deal up front with folks, and I hope that most of the times they're doing the same with me.
Sure. I love that follow through. You're not like, I think of other breeders, like, the commercial breeders, and they're just like, in and out. There's constant traffic, but you like know the personality somewhat. You've spent some time with the chicks, and you've handled all those eggs, and I'm gonna say small, like a smaller breeder, but
Yeah.
it's just that you're actually paying attention, and for me that means so much, to know that my chicks have been cared for, and that you're doing everything that you can to follow through to make sure that I would be successful and that other people are successful in their chick raising.
Well, that's the start of the whole ball game right there. That if you can start off with a healthy chick, which obviously I've hopefully bred from good quality stock, and then raised them right, then what you're getting is about as healthy of a chick as you can get. You're going to enjoy the process, and if you enjoy the process, maybe you're going to come back next year. Maybe you're going to recommend me to a friend, etc. One of the things I really try to do, and probably sometimes people think, what the heck is this guy doing? Is I follow up the next day,
Cool.
after a night of them being at the new home, in the brooder, because my brooder and the person that I've given the chick to might be totally different. They might use different shavings. They might use a different container. They might use a heat lamp versus a hot plate type of thing. And so all those things can affect that chick. And so just because they were strong and healthy the minute they left me, I'm not sure what's happened in the 12 hours since. And so I always try to follow up, how did the chick settle in for the night? I think some folks every now and then are like, good, they're fine,
Yeah.
and why are you contacting me? We've already done our business.
Oh,
But I really think it's a good act of business, or just showing them that, hey, I want you to be successful in this experience, because it is really a fun experience. But as you know, Amy, there are pitfalls, and things can happen even if you do everything right.
right. Well, I think, just like you were saying, for the most part, people are probably going to be fine. They're being like, leave me alone. But those couple people that might struggle would be so grateful, and they must be so grateful that you're checking in and are there if they have any questions or concerns. Just like, I'm sure, just like having a baby. I don't have babies, but to have that doctor's number on speed dial, for the first couple weeks when everything is new.
People seem to appreciate it. I've never really had anybody, say, why are you contacting me? I think that's my own brain thinking that sometime. And I still have folks that, probably got chicks from me 4 or 5 years ago that still contact me about issues. I have people that have never bought chicks from me that contacted me by issues. And sometimes they start at, well, I didn't buy my chicks from you, but it doesn't matter whether they bought them from me or they bought them from someone else. They have an issue, and if I can help them with that, I'm going to try my best. Sometimes it's hard because you don't know all the variables that are the person or the chick is dealing with. Sometimes the person tries their best to give you all those. Sometimes they leave some stuff out. Sometimes the suggestions you give them, they're like, well, it's not that. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe. But you just try your best to help them have a good experience.
Right. That's awesome. Okay. And so I'm just going to stick with the chicken theme for a sec. And so I know in your chicken chats, you say a lot to people that they should, if they want to breed chickens, that they would breed chickens that they like breed the breeds that they like. And so what are your favorite chicken breeds? I know that you have a few that you are focusing on right now.
Yeah, the reason I say that is anybody that's a small time breeder, you're not going to make $1 million breeding chickens or selling eggs. So if you're getting into it for that, or you're getting into, hey, this breed is really popular, I'm going to breed that. Well, sometimes by the time you're actually breeding and producing chicks, that breed is no longer popular. It kind of goes in waves. And so if you're always chasing that, top breed, I think you're going to be disappointed, because what was popular 2 years ago may not be popular a year from now. And sometimes to get a real breeding program going, you're talking about multiple years for breeding chickens. So right now, and I've bred or had chickens that I thought I was going to like, and I ended up not liking them. And after a year, I got out of them because they just were not the personality I thought. Maybe the eggs weren't what I thought. Maybe the chicks were, there's a lot of different reasons. And so that's kind of why I give that recommendation. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So you try new breeds, their temperament, their size, their egg color, their how frequently they lay, etc., how they get along with other birds or with people. And you find out, oh, I really like this breed, I'm going to keep with it. Or, you know what, geez, I really thought that this and this wasn't going to be a problem. And so right now, the breeds that I'm focusing on, and I'm probably going to forget one, salmon favorals. I've just started breeding white favorals, lavender Orpingtons, mottled lavender Orpingtons, which is a new breed for me, Marins, both blue and black, cream crested leg bars, Saramas, and Silkies. That's like 7 or 8, right?
That's a lot. I didn't think that there were that many, but that, I guess, yeah, that makes sense. I've heard you talk about all of those except for the white.
Yeah, the white favorals and the mottled lavender are new for next spring. I have a small group of both of those that I'm hoping will make it till springtime. And as you know, in Maine, just because you have them in the summer doesn't mean you're going to have them come breeding season, because a lot can happen on homesteads or farms or houses or whatever else, depending if they free range or not, whether it's critters or predators or sickness, or who knows, a lot can happen.
Sure. Well, and that'll be it's a good test to be able to tell people, if they survive the winter, like how they do in the winter, because I know some of them have bigger combs and some of them have smaller combs, and then there's the whole frostbite and the feathered feet and such. Like I've learned a lot over my years about what works and what works less and what I struggle with. Like I had a Brahma. I had 2 Brahmas, and they had like the scaly leg mites, and they're so hard to see because of the feathered feet, but
right,
boy, were they nice chickens.
Well, and last year I had hoped to have some mottled lavenders. I spent some big money on some eggs. Didn't have a great hatch, but had enough to start a small breeding program. And I ended up culling some roosters early in the summer because I had way too many. Well, by the time springtime came around, I didn't have any roosters. The roosters that I had kept passed away. And so basically I had hens, but no roosters to breed them with. And so this year I'm not making that mistake. I got 4 roosters, 4 mottled roosters, lavender, and they're all staying at least till springtime because I just can't take that chance. I mean, the tough part about and I don't think it's just Maine. I think it's when you're working with chickens, you got to wait a year basically, because by the time you raise a cockerel or a hen, you're probably talking somewhere in that 4 to 7 month range. And even then, they're not necessarily fully mature. And if you're a breeder, you're looking for certain qualities that may show up later after they turn a year old, whether it's body position or color or after their first molt, etc. And so every time you screw up, or nature has you screw up, I guess, you're pretty much, that's a year mistake. That you're set back a year.
Right. You missed a season.
Yeah, and that's what happened. That's happened to me a couple of times when it comes to roosters or hens. But it is what it is.
Well, I mean, you're learning as you're doing it. That's how
Yeah,
life works.
don't call your roosters. You need a few to make it till spring.
Right. Do you have a rooster bachelor pad? I have a friend who has a bachelor pad for her roosters.
I don't right now, but come breeding season, I may have to. So I'm keeping a couple extra, which is going to be overwhelming to the hens. I don't want to overwhelm them. So I have a couple extra coops. Come springtime, I try to, every breed has its own coop and its own run.
Wow.
And I've made some improvements this year as well with some chain link fencing and some doors. And so I have two kind of standby coops. They're not my best coops. They're not my favorite coops, but in a pinch, they'll work for a couple of months, no problem. The only tough part is, when you have, I don't know, life and a job, every time you add a coop, you add water, you add food, you add maintenance, you add care. And so your morning routines and your afternoon, night routines, the time increases. And especially in the wintertime when you're, taking out frozen water and the whole 9 yards. So I try to consolidate my coops in the wintertime, both for them for generating body heat, but also for time. And then come breeding season, they all got to be split back up because obviously I do purebreds.
Right.
The only one that I have together is I do have my Saramas in with my Marins. But I've never had an issue with a Marin jumping on a Sarama.
Yeah. The Saramas are little, right?
They are the smallest chicken breed in the world.
Oh my gosh. We have a little bantam rooster and he's adorable. I can't imagine smaller than that. They're not big on, well, he's big on mating with the hens, but
Yeah.
I don't think anything's very successful.
Yeah.
And it's cool. But that's cool. So the Sarama's not any threat to the breeding situation, and so
it hasn't been in all the time that I've been doing it. They kind of stick to themselves. I think part of it that helps is, again, having that they're not just stuck in a coop. They have an okay size run that they can get out in, and the Saramas are a lot more. They can fly. Like Saramas can fly more than a normal chicken can, and so. If a Sarama really wants to get away from a big rooster, they can go up high.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I would love to hold one of those little ones. I love the little ones. They are hysterical. Cool. All right. So let's see. What went into your chicken startup? Like there's a lot to it, but like how much research did you do, or did you just say, I'm going to build myself a coop and I'm going to have a few chickens and we'll see how that goes?
Yeah. So my father-in-law, they had chickens and goats and the whole 9 yards. They had bought a farm, kind of a gentleman farm type of thing. And my girls were young and they liked collecting the eggs and so forth. And so one summer my youngest and I decided that we were going to get chickens, and we did the whole mail order thing like everybody does from one of the companies. And we went through the catalog and, checked all the pictures and characteristics, et cetera, and ordered, I want to say it was 8 or 10 of them. And I picked her up from school one day when the post office came, got her out early. I'm sure that was an excused absence. And we went to the post office and picked him up. And that's kind of how the journey started. We had an old shed that I used for my tractor. Actually, it was kind of a shed / garage that I split in half and built a coop, or built a part of a coop inside the shed. And that's kind of how the journey started. And from there, that shed got divided again, and a section was added on to the back, and then chain link fencing and building a coop and the whole 9 yards. And so we've just kind of kept adding from there. And again, early on, I had no clue about any of it. I really, I would go to the auctions at Tractor Supply, the chicken swaps that they used to have. And I would learn from some great people on Facebook. Scott Bradford was one that I used to follow all the time up in, oh God, where was he? He was up
I think they're in Bradford, right?
Yeah, not Scott Bradford. It was Scott.
I forget his last name.
Yeah, but he was the guru.
Right. Yeah, we saw him at the Common Ground Fair. What is his last name? His wife's name is Nicole. I think. Yeah,
and so he was a great learning tool, and someone who really didn't have any knowledge whatsoever.
Yeah.
And from there, it just built. It just, I learned. I watched stuff. I listened to people. I was on the different pages, and I tried new things out, and kind of went from there.
Cool. All right. And then what would you suggest for someone who's just getting started or is interested in getting chickens? Like I think especially with the way things are these days, supply chain, et cetera, like it's kind of a good idea for folks to have a couple or a few chickens, just, so that they have steady eggs and such. And so if someone were thinking about doing that, what would you say to someone to get started?
See, the hard part is when you get started, you don't know if you're going to continue.
Yeah.
And so if I knew the person was going to continue, my advice might be a little bit different than a person who's just trying it out and may not enjoy it. One of those things would be, get yourself a good coop that you can walk into, if you're going to have multiple, because preparing for winter for a chicken keeper in Maine is like my number one advice. You gotta, chicken keeping in the winter stinks. It's not an enjoyable experience. So if you can survive that and you still enjoy it, you're gonna probably keep with chickens for a while. If you only have a couple, then sure, a small little coop that you can reach your hand in and grab the eggs is perfectly fine. But once you start going over a certain number, you don't want to be crawling into anything in the middle of winter to clean stuff or to change the water or any of that. And I'm 6'3", so obviously me climbing into a coop, depending compared to somebody else, might be a little bit different.
6'3", holy moly! That's very different than what I'm seeing when you're sitting down.
Yeah. So I've had those coops where I had to climb under.
Oh my gosh.
And, that's not fun in the middle of winter. That's not fun in rain and slop and what's on the ground in a chicken coop. So, make sure you're kind of thinking about that side of it when you're looking into your coop. And I've seen small coops that work for, 3, 4, 5 chickens. That you don't have to, kind of climb in, that you could actually even move yourself.
Right.
But when you kind of get past that mark, you really got to think about all that maintenance stuff. Yeah, the eggs are great. Yeah, the chickens are great. But if you want to keep them healthy, you got some cleaning to do. You got some other things that you have to take care of. So kind of put some thought into that side of it as well.
Yes, I totally agree on the, have it be big enough for you to be able to get into. And then what I remember when we were getting started was, everyone says chickens are so fun, they're so easy, and I will say, sure. I mean, like my happy place is out in my yard, sitting on my swing with my chickens walking around. Dog and cats around me too, but it's just such a peaceful thing to be around them. And so I love, love, love my chickens, but I was not mentally prepared for chicken illnesses or injuries. And that is, when I hear that someone is getting started, I want to say, be careful of this and make sure you have this. And I keep seeing, on chicken Facebook pages, people saying, make sure you have your chicken medicine cabinet or your first aid kit. Oh my goodness, what a great, I think that would be a great kind of a perk for, I'm not saying you, Andy, necessarily, but like if a breeder would say, even give a list of things that would be helpful for someone starting out, just to have on hand. That would have been amazing for me because I was so not prepared.
Yeah,
Vaseline or something for for frostbite on their combs, or for the scaly leg mites. That was my first real issue that totally freaked me out, and I wasn't really prepared for. But I just, I was just thinking that, because I feel like I have to find the list every time that everyone says, and I'm beefing up my my first aid kit as I go along. But so like Nutridrench is a really good one.
Yep.
And the electrolytes.
I think honestly, the way, and you just said it, you kind of have to build that up over time. It'd be great if you could buy it all at once, if you have the resources to do that. And some people do. Sure. And some you might not ever use, to be perfectly honest with you. I've given advice to people before about using Tylen, but it's the injectable kind. And they're like, I don't want to inject.
Without a prescription, right?
Yeah, and you some people don't want to inject, which is fine. Some people, well, don't they have a liquid form? Well, they used to, but then the antibiotic, they tried to kind of get that out of there. And so everybody's a little bit different, but you're right. Some of these things you come by because you experienced it. So now with you with scaly leg mites, I'm sure you're never going to be caught off guard by that again.
Right.
And that's because you went through it. That was your experience. And so sometimes you can try to tell people to watch out for stuff, but honestly, and everybody learns different, but honestly, until you go through it yourself, sometimes you don't really, somebody can tell you certain things, but until you actually see it or it clicks,
right,
it doesn't really make sense to you.
Right. You're not going to hear it as it's intended.
Well, and a good example of that, and one of the reasons I do it on my show, is when I'm candling eggs. People who have never candled eggs see that blob that is the yolk, and they think that's the chick.
Right.
Until they see the veins that first time and say, wait a minute, the veins and the dark coloring, that is totally different than that yellow blob that I thought was a chick, 3 days ago.
Right.
But they have to see it to understand that. And they can look at pictures and all that. I used to think, when we first started candling eggs, holy cow, we got excited about every little thing. And now it's like, I still get excited, but you can tell, I can tell within half a second now, whereas before, I'd be looking at that thing for probably 25 seconds in all different directions.
Is that it?
To figure out if there's a chick in there.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, that's really helpful information. I totally agree. As you learn, as you get to know your chickens, because every chicken is going to have, like, if you don't have Brahmas, you don't have to worry so much about, I don't know. I feel like the scaly leg mites were just hiding underneath the feathered feet, but I haven't had that problem with anyone except the Brahmas. But yeah, you get to know them, so you'll know what to look for sometimes. But anyway, I just thought that was a thing that I've kind of had in my brain, I guess, just like a, for people that are getting started, what would I recommend for them to have? But
Yeah, no, you're right. There's a bunch of basics that make total sense that you should build towards, and
yeah.
maybe that's something in the future I'll make sure I talk about.
And so let's see. But so, okay, so to get away from chickens, I mean, you love chickens, you're breeding chickens, you're doing an awesome thing with that. But you do other things as well. So okay, so the question that I have, that I like a sort of an overhead question. So your farm, Andy, is called Whynot Farms, plural. So why is it farms plural?
Just because that's the way I say it all the time. I don't have plural farms. I'm not even sure I have one farm when I think about it.
Okay.
It just, when I kind of started the journey, and some of this started during COVID, not necessarily chicken keeping, but the Whynot Farm page and the Whynot Farm name
Mhm.
is, there are a lot of things that I do. And kind of during COVID, I kind of started saying, why not try this? Why not do this? Why not create this garden? Why not start whittling? Why not, all that stuff. And it kind of became a little bit of a mantra that, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, you try a new vegetable out in the garden, or you try a garden at all and things don't grow. Big deal. You're probably out $10 in seeds, or maybe more because you had to do the soil or whatever else.
Right.
But
But then
even
if it does grow and it does, and it is successful, there you have it. Like,
exactly, and that's kind of where it all came from. Is even the failures are experience and something that you learn from. So why not give it a shot? Why not give it a try? If it doesn't work out, yeah, you learn something and you'll do something different the next time.
I love
That's where it kind of came from.
it's such a good attitude to have. I struggle with that, but I totally respect that. That you're not afraid to try. I love that all together. But
Oh,
and
and I don't have it all nailed down. I still have anxiety about trying things and worrying I'm going to screw it up. But when push comes to shove, and I remember that, hey, why not? It usually gets done. But there's still that worry. There's still that concern. There's still that fear of failure at times. But when you kind of boil it down, it's like, hey, what's the worst that can happen?
cool, awesome. And so, are you a legit homestead, Andy?
I probably not by the official definition. I consider myself someone who is homesteading, who is
Gotcha.
creating a more sustainable life for myself, my family, using animals, gardens, etc., using the land. But if you compared me to someone who that was their full-time job, it wouldn't even be close. I couldn't leave my job tomorrow and homestead. That it does not make enough of a living.
Thank you.
But
Oh my gosh, that's so perfect. That's so perfect the way that you just said that. I love it. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, no, but in my spare time, that's what I do. When I'm not working, all the stuff that you kind of see, whether it's chickens, or whether it's gardening, or whether it's woodworking, or landscaping, or you name it. That's kind of what I do in my spare time. That's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah,
Um,
awesome. And so you do woodworking. I've seen some of your treasures that you've come up with. And so is it like wood carving, or is it woodworking? Do you like make furniture, or is it
yeah.
sculpt things?
So I tend to kind of do. I'm not a construction guy, but I've built 3 or 4 coops now myself. I'm a little bit of a handyman. I do stuff around the house, etc. So I know how to do stuff, but I'm not building the house down the road. That's not my expertise. Could I help with that? Sure. Um, I tend to do like cutting boards and charcuterie boards and um, wooden spoons, and I whittle ornaments and bottle openers and stuff like that. Something to keep my hands busy, something that seem to have a purpose in this world. People like it. Beer flights, pizza peels, herb strippers,
Cool.
dibblers for the garden to check your depths, that kind of stuff. So I'm always trying to add to that repertoire. I don't tend to advertise very much. Every now and then I'll post something on my page,
Well,
but
it's woodworking Wednesdays, right?
yeah, I do that. I sometimes skip the woodworking Wednesdays. I'm like, people don't want to see that again. But it keeps me busy. I enjoy it, and kind of the way my brain works or my calendar works is I tend to do certain things during certain times of the year.
Hmm.
And so, chickens obviously take up a lot of time from February till June.
Mm-hmm.
But come springtime, gardening and vegetables and growing stuff take up a
For
huge
sure.
portion of that. Woodworking does a lot in the wintertime leading up to Christmas.
All those
Um,
dark months in front of the TV.
well, yeah, I mean that keeps me busy, and I do coach. I coach basketball, and so that keeps me busy in the winter time from pretty much October to I don't know, end of January, February. I've done that for a few years,
Oh
and
my gosh.
so that I love to cook. So that again, there are times when you see a lot of recipes on my page where I'm trying new things, and then other times of the year where you don't see as much of that. It kind of goes in cycles with me. I get on a kick and I do it for a while, and all the time there's stuff in the background still happening,
Right.
but you may not realize it. Like gardening's still happening right now. Chicken keeping is still happening right now. Woodworking's still happening right now, but you might not necessarily know it if you looked at my page.
Your focus is elsewhere, sure. But
Right.
so, and I've missed all that with you were doing a lot of posts with your food, and of course, like you were saying, it's gardening time and you're busy with that, but like what have you been working on lately? Because I know you did like zucchini pizzas, which is awesome. This time of year especially, right? You must be buried in zucchini.
Yeah. We unfortunately, and this is one of those why not moments. So I had the squash bug that attacked my zucchini and my squash.
Dang it.
I tried really hard not to use any chemicals this year, and I was doing really well up until about I don't know a month ago,
Hmm.
and 3 weeks ago, and the squash bug found us. And if you've never seen the squash bug, they look like little aliens, and
They're
they
so
multiply.
creepy.
They really are. And those kind of put an end to, I still have some zucchini growing, but you can tell they've really gotten into the stem and infected that. And so um, it's trying to battle back, but I'm not sure. Compared to what we were getting a couple months ago, where it was like, holy cow, we have so much zucchini, it's ridiculous.
Right.
Um,
I was just
and
picking them off of my cucumbers as right before we were talking today. Um,
Yeah, I was on a pretty good stretch with the cucumber beetle. I was doing really well with that. And I thought, hey, I'm making some progress here. I'm doing well. I was going out every morning with a Q-tip and some Vaseline, picking them out of the flowers and getting them and squishing them. And I thought I was making a real dent. And I was with the cucumber beetle, but then the squash bug came. And I had never had that before, but then again, I had never grown squash.
oh,
And so even though it doesn't just attack squash, it attacks squash, zucchini,
anything
uh,
else it can reach.
pumpkins. That has kind of set me back a little bit. But, it's all part of the process. Again, next year I'll know about that damn squash bug.
Yeah.
Um,
We're plagued with the squash and the cucumber beetles. I can't even. I grow zucchini every year, but I haven't had a proper zucchini in a couple of years. It's
Well, I
sad.
got two in my basket right in front of me now that are pretty big. So I got a couple plants still doing okay. So it's actually probably keeping us at about the right rate. We don't have to break into anybody's car and put zucchini in it right now.
But you got enough to eat. That's good.
Yes, yes. Well, we're a friend of mine gave me some and I'm probably saying it wrong, delicata
Oh,
squash.
yep.
Oh my God, that is delicious. And
Oh,
so I have enough that we've been able to eat it and try it, and it's very good. And hopefully we'll get quite a bit more because this kind you can eat the skin.
yep.
You cook it skin and all, and it's quite tasty.
Okay. Cool. And so what are you making these days with your bounty?
Let's see. What am I? Been making a bunch of pies, blueberry pies. Our blueberries did really well.
Nice.
And that is my wife's favorite. So I think I've made 2 or 3 blueberry pies.
Do you make the
Uh,
crust too?
I have a recipe. It depends on the day if I'm making the crust or not.
Right.
Sometimes I just grab one of the ones from the grocery store. It's quick, it's easy, it's ready to go, and then I add kind of stuff to it
Sure.
to make it a little bit better. I do have my mom's recipe for crust, but it depends on the day if we're going to use that or not.
Hear that.
So, stuff like that. And obviously the squash, the zucchini, the cucumbers, the tomatoes. Tomatoes are just starting to explode. I have 5 different types of tomatoes that I'm growing. And probably my next new tomato recipe is something called a tomato pie. So I'm going to try that when I have enough that I can go to town on that one.
Have you tried tomato jam?
I have tried it from someone else. I have not made it.
Okay. I tried it for the first time last year and I'm hooked. It's like a chunky ketchup, which is pretty fabulous.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the post about the zucchini pie.
Yes. And did you try it?
Oh yeah, I made that.
And it's supposed to be like an apple pie, right? It's supposed to has like apple pie
you would
spices.
not know, you would not, and I actually gave it to some friends. I let them have a piece and didn't tell them it was zucchini. And it is delicious.
Awesome.
You will fool some people. They will think it's an apple pie.
Awesome. Cool.
And it's a great way to use up your zucchini. That's about 6 cups, which depending on the size of your zucchini is about 2 or 3, depending if you let them go really big or not.
Sure.
And it's something I'll make again, definitely.
Oh, sweet. That's very cool. Maybe you could share the recipe and I would definitely share that. So, okay. Well, that's awesome. I think the first time I saw you do a cooking demonstration or a cooking post was, I think it was last summer maybe, and you were doing a tomato soup and I was like, whoa. Whoa.
You know,
And so I may do that this year.
the funny part is those cooking videos, if you're doing them on YouTube, you don't have to worry about the length. But if you're doing them on like Facebook, after a certain amount of time, people get bored with your video. They don't want to watch a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes video. So for some of that stuff, I've had to try to scale it down, go really, really quick, just with the hope that somebody will watch the whole thing.
People on Facebook, they're all about scrolling. They don't want to sit and watch something. I hear that.
Oh, it's crazy when I look at, I'll have a post that I think is an amazing post. I'm like, I'm gonna get 2,000 likes, and I'm gonna get this, and or reach 2,000 people, and I'm gonna get 100 likes, and it tanks. And then I'll post some throwaway post that I just stuck up there for no apparent reason because I wanted to post something, and it does better than the other one. And I'm like, I don't understand Facebook. I don't understand why some days it reaches and other days it doesn't. I don't know.
Oh, it's awful. And I know there are like specific times when people recommend posting, and it's never convenient for me to do that. And I know you can like schedule them with stuff, but I prefer to just be present in it. But anyway, so
I
Andy,
tend to post my stuff when I wake up. So 6 o'clock before I go to work during the, I put a post up so it's up all day.
right,
And sometimes that works for me and sometimes it doesn't. I'm done chasing.
right. I'm usually looking at 7:15 when I'm walking the dog in the morning. So I'm probably one of the first people to like your posts while I'm walking the dog.
Well, I
Uh,
appreciate the support.
so Andy, when I say the word sustainability, what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm sure everybody has their own definition. We kind of talked about it a little bit when we talked about homesteading.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I think about sustaining my hobby as a chicken breeder or having chickens, I need to break even plus. If I'm not breaking even or plus, at some point you got to think this maybe is not something that I can keep doing, that I can sustain for a long period of time. And so when I think about the chickens themselves, I think about, okay, how much does stuff cost? How much does feed cost? How much am I making on eggs, etc.? How much do I make when I, sell a chick? So I actually have what I call a real scientific name, a chicken jar. So all the money that I ever get from eggs or anything else goes into the chicken jar. And that jar has to have money for all the stuff that we need when it comes
Ah,
to
that's
chickens.
clever.
And in the beginning, you're going to have a negative chicken jar. You really are, because to get started, you got to put more into it than you're ever getting back, because
Sure.
it just doesn't, if a chicken doesn't lay for 6 months, there's no way you're going to make money. But
Plus
at a,
the incubator and all that
right,
stuff.
at a certain point, you got to say, okay, I dumped whatever it is. I dumped 500, I dumped $1,000 into chickens, whether it was a coop, whether it's feed, whether it's an incubator, etc. And now I'm clearing the decks. And from now on, I got to make sure this can make money, or
Right.
this can at least break even. And I know that was really hard for a lot of folks with inflation on feed prices.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Folks, especially what they're selling their eggs for. If you're selling your eggs for $3,
Right.
there's no way you're not taking a loss when it came to chicken feed being up to 20 plus bucks a bag.
Right.
It can't happen. So I kind of look at it that way when I look at my gardens, when I look at the harvest that I bring in, when I look at the chickens, when I look at the woodworking, when I look at all of that, am I doing enough? Am I harvesting locally? Am I using resources around me? And am I not putting myself or my family in debt? And so far, knock on wood, that's been good. That really has.
Okay.
Some of that has been because I've been thrifty. Some of the stuff I've picked up was not the state of the art. It was not the top model at the time, or maybe it was something I saw on Marketplace that was free.
Sure.
Well, that's the only way you can do it. Now, I'll tell you, I just picked up chain link fence panels for free.
Mm.
And I picked up what was probably, if you wanted to charge, would have been somewhere in the $300 to $500 range.
Awesome.
I picked that up. Primarily, I just needed another chain link fence with a gate to separate my breeding pens. I wanted an easier access.
Sure.
And I had to take apart this structure that had these panels, but I could have the panels.
Awesome.
So I took, a morning last week and went and did that. It took me a couple of hours, a little sweat, blood, and tears.
Mm.
And now I have some fence panels that didn't cost me a dime. Well, other than my own time.
Right.
Sometimes you got to do that.
Sure. Well, it'll be worth it to have that space for your peeps.
Yeah, and so when it comes to sustainability, that using the land, using what you have around you, using your resources, and again, hopefully making it so that if you ever itemized every single thing, eventually you're breaking even or making a little bit of money to help your family. And people don't always think about that when they think of their gardens or they think of their eggs, etc. And I'm not that analytic that I think that way. I'm more of a ballpark type of guy.
Sure.
But even with my gardens, I know that the seeds that I purchased or saved, the amount of food we're eating outweighs the amount of money I spent on those.
Mm. Well, that's really practical. I mean, I like the way that you're saying that, because for me, and I think I'm just not a business person. I'm not a business minded person. So I'm like, okay, I want to make money, but there's so much satisfaction in, I get so much back from raising chickens, and I get so much back from, the garden therapy and such, that I'm not thinking about money. But I like the way that you're saying that. Like, I need to make something back and not, at least break even, so that it's not just in the hole. Because I feel like a lot of time I'm in the hole a lot.
Well, and I think you got to think about
But I'm
that.
happy.
I think you got to think about that mental health side
Right.
when you're thinking all about that of breaking even. Like, if you're out in your garden for 2 hours, okay, that's 2 hours of enjoyment.
Right.
If you're tending to your chickens, that's, well, for most folks, that's enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of factor that in almost as like a cost. How much is my time worth? Okay, if I was paying myself minimum wage, I don't know, what is that, $15 an hour now? I've gotten $30 worth of mental health.
Right.
I actually enjoy cleaning my chicken coops.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe I don't enjoy it in December,
Right.
but that's just kind of time, me out there doing a chore and making them look better, that kind of thing. And mental health wise, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Andy. So last question that I have for you is just, if people are inspired by what you're saying and what you're doing, if somebody wanted to follow Whynot Farms and check in with you and follow you and go to the chicken chats and stuff like that, like how would someone find you?
So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok. Whynot
Oh, I
Farms.
totally believe you're on TikTok. You would be awesome at TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok goes in cycles with me too. There are times I'm really inspired by the music and the whole 9 yards, and there are other times where I'm like, okay, let's just keep moving. So if you're on any of those platforms, you can follow me. Messenger on Facebook is the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm pretty good about responding rather quickly to either requests or help or information. Awesome. When it comes to the chicken chat, I usually announce those about a week ahead of time just to get people to know that they're coming up. But come February till about June, they're usually every Sunday
at 7
at 7 o'clock. And honestly, if you have questions, I probably covered it at one point during previous chicken chats or videos, so there's a ton of archives there with either pictures of my chickens, my breeds, gardening stuff, woodworking stuff, cooking stuff. So if any of that stuff is your fancy, is something that you enjoy, then give us a like, give us a follow, give us a share. Whatever works for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Andy. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom, and I am excited to share this with folks.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a true pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
I want to just take a quick second and thank my guest again. I also need to thank Buzzsprout for hosting the podcast, and Jane Bolduck for her amazing music.
There'll come a day love and hold me, a heart that's strong and so sincere. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? Oh, tell me, how do I get there from here? 'Cause here and now I'm so far down that mercy's bound to find me. We'll find a way to soothe the sickness. We'll heal the ache with sweet forgiveness. Wages of war will disappear. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? I wonder, how do I get there from here? Yeah, 'cause here and now I'm so far down and mercy's bound to find me. When that state of grace has finally found me, well, there'll be music, ooh, and good friends around me, yeah, yeah. And I'll just smile through happy tears and wonder,